Hello everyone, my name is Malika Khadka. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the Wajik Nagar people on whose country this recording takes place. I pay my deep respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aborigines and Torres Strait Island people those are joining today. This presentation explores Indigenous Australians' culture and identities, focusing on two shared cultural qualities. Cultural protocols and acknowledgement. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are informed that this presentation may contain reference to images and names. I also want to emphasize respectful language. The term Aborigine and Torres Strait Islander people will be used throughout this presentation, considering the diversity and sovereignty of First Nations communities. It is not just cultural protocols, it is showing respect, reciprocity, and acknowledgement of country and custodianship. Observing these protocols brings the presentation into alignment towards indigenous ways of being and knowing. Key quote and context. As one of the elders says, being aboriginal is not the color of your skin, it is a spiritual feeling, an identity you know in your heart. This quote demonstrates the fact that Aboriginal identity is based on culture and religion but not biology. In this unit, we are encouraged to explore our own identity, values, and beliefs as we have a highly valued indigenous cultural perspective. In the following slides, we will explore how identity, spirituality, and governance are fundamental to health and closing the gap. Overview of cultural qualities. From the lectures before week 2 to 5, there are four major themes: Indigenous Australian diversity, cultures and identity, spirituality, healing and health, wisdom, communication and artifact, cultural governance and self determination. Among these, two are the consistent cultural attributes: connection to country and spirituality, collective governance and community obligations. These attributes join all dimensions of existence, health, communication, and self determination. Quality 1: Connection to country and spirituality. Indigenous spirituality is directly linked to country. Land is sacred, and well being is inseparable from the environment, community, and cultural knowledge. The National Aboriginal Health Strategy defines health is more than just physical well being, but also social, emotional, and cultural well being of the whole community. The importance of spirituality practices such as dreaming stories, songlines, and ceremonial healing rituals demonstrate this deep integration of spirituality with daily life. Evidence for quality 1. Scholar Vicky Graves mentioned Aboriginal spirituality as the philosophical baseline for indigenous knowledges, developing resilience and emotional well-being in a colonial world. Coleman 2019 extends this context, asserting the interconnectedness of humans, ancestor, animal, plant, and places. This cultural lore has embedded original communities not only to survive but to thrive through environmental and political challenges. It's a perspective that helps us to understand what land means to indigenous people and the way it functions as an organizing principle of the society. Quality 2: Collective governance and community obligation. Traditional governance structures highlights elders, peace and harmony. Decision making is on the basis of respect for law, ceremony and country. For local governance, indigenous people have a duty to share resources, protect the vulnerable and maintain the environment. This contrasts with the Western governance by centering relation responsibility rather than individual autonomy. It also contributes to social cohesion and long-term sustenance of the communities. Evidence for quality too. The Yolong artist Dundiwan Munugar said law was all patrons set down in art, ceremony and song that govern every aspect of life. The new model was underpinned by historical precedents such as 1966 Wave Hill Walk-Off, led by Vincent Lingiran, that suggest how governance could be kept into practice. This was more than just a strike for better industrial conditions and also about self determination and the respect of culture. These cases reveal governance as inseparable from culture, kingship, and country. Impact of Governance Models on Indigenous Outcomes 2024. This visually aids the argument that collective governance and community obligations improve towards closing the gap outcomes. Though the mortality rate has fallen by 14% since 1998, there is a slight improvement since 2006, so the target appears highly unlikely to be achieved without major change in policy. Life Expectancy Gap 2024. The bar graph demonstrates the persistent gap despite decades of investment. Moreover, it reflects not only biomedical health but also social determinants, cultural disconnection, and systematic inequalities. Applying quality one spirituality and country. If health is truly taken as a whole, connection to country and spirituality are essential in closing the gaps. Interventions that address cultural identity, such as cultural healing camps, bush medicine, and songline education, encourage health and resilience. When cultural roots are ignored, then bad outcomes follows it. Acknowledging spirituality enables health programs that are led by indigenous people to thrive and create trust. Applying quality to governance and community. Effective indigenous governance is key element in closing the gap. Communities make better decisions when they have control whether in health services, education or land management. Two-way governance is emerging as the best practice because it balances indigenous cultural integrity with mainstream accountability. For example, Aboriginal community controlled health services consistently outperform better health outcomes than centralized government provision. Cross-cultural tension and mistakes. Closing the gap risks fail when indigenous cultural qualities are excluded. Success requires embedding spirituality and governance into all policy design and evaluation. However, challenges still remains. Previous top-down policies frequently suppress the voice of indigenous people, resulting in mistrust and poor result. For example, interventions that failed to consult elders disrupted community governance and cultural authority. Closing the gap is doomed to failure. One has to make spirituality and governance into the policy design and evaluation. Overall, to conclude today's presentation, connection to country and spirituality and collective governance and obligations are abiding cultural qualities. It is these characteristics that directly affects well-being which must be placed in closing the gap strategies. This respect to indigenous cultural system risks replicating cross-cultural mistakes. Real equity in health and life expectancy will only be accomplished with indigenous lead culturally based approaches. Thank you. Last not the least, these are the references that I referred while making my presentation. Also, I would like to sincerely thank my professor, Dr. Margaret, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present my PowerPoint. It was a valuable experience that helped me improve my confidence and communication skills. Thank you once again.